voting SNP, people in Scotland can make sure that Scotland gets treated fairly after this election. Right, I think I've got time for a couple more. Tom? Oh, sorry, there's two Toms. I was going to Tom Peterkin first, and then I'll come to Tom Gordon.
Thank you very much. Tom Peterkin, Press and Journal. Can you categorically rule out SNP support for Jeremy Corbyn's oil and gas tax plans in any Westminster deal? I
am not attracted to that or in favour of that. The only caveat I'd put is I've not seen any detail of it, but it seems to me that that proposal would cost jobs in the northeast of Scotland in particular. I am absolutely committed to the transition away from fossil fuels. That transition is already underway in Scotland, but we've got to make sure that is done fairly. You know, I grew up in the west of Scotland when I still saw the legacy of previous industrial transformations, when people were left behind, when there was not a fair transition, and we've got to make sure it's fair. I don't think, from what I've seen so far, that this proposal does that, and I believe what we are proposing in terms of the Net Zero Fund and the Net Zero Industrial Strategy is a far better way to proceed.
Hello there, First Minister. Tom Gordon from the Herald newspaper. On the timetable for independence, in 2014 you said the transition would take 18 months and it would all be wrapped up just in time for the next Holyrood election. And that way, of course, you controlled the numbers in Holyrood and you can get all your legislation through. Now, if you have a referendum next year, you very quickly butt up against the next Holyrood election, perhaps only 9 months away, when the Holyrood arithmetic might alter, and also the campaign would probably feature on a yes vote. Perhaps your opposition parties would try to offer a second referendum in that election period. So it gets quite tangled quite quickly. So can you give me an exact time frame you would expect to get independence done?
We'll set that out in advance of the independence referendum, and we'll set that out clearly, as we did in 2014 in the White Paper. As you said, we had an 18-month transition there in terms of the transfer of power to allow Scotland to become independent. There were certain matters that we said in the White Paper would take longer than that to complete the transition, but we will set that out fully. I mean, I suppose in short, your question that, elections make life difficult. Well, yeah, elections have a tendency often to make life difficult for politicians, but I'm afraid they are a feature of our democracy, and it's for politicians to make sure that we respect that, and we never ever shy away from people having a say on what it is we're putting forward for the future of our country. Okay, I think Andy.
Andy Phillip at the Daily Record. Your message on Brexit is very clear, but what do you say to the million Scots that voted Leave?
Well, look, I have always said I respect the vote of people who voted Leave. I think the reasons that drove many people to vote Leave, and obviously some of them were directly related to the European Union, some of them, and I'm saying this based on many conversations I've had with Leave voters, were due to frustration around austerity in the direction that Westminster was taking our country. I think those issues have to be listened to and addressed. But I would say two more things. I, as First Minister, I cannot ignore the fact that a very clear majority of people in Scotland voted to remain in the European Union. And I have a duty, I think, to reflect and represent that desire of people in Scotland not to be taken out of the European Union against our will. The second point I would make is that I have spoken to so many people who voted Leave in the Brexit referendum. I'm not saying they've changed their mind on the basis on which they cast that vote, but they are as sick of the mess that Brexit has become as those who voted to remain in the EU, because nobody who voted Leave expected it to descend into the chaos that it has done. That wasn't inevitable, and I have spoken to very many Leave voters who, if they had the chance tomorrow, would probably vote differently to how they voted in 2016. But as First Minister, and indeed as leader of my party, I will always seek to listen to and to respect how different people voted. And the final point would be whether people voted leave or remain in the Brexit vote, nobody expected it to become the mess it has. And also, that fundamental point is that we should not as a country be having our future decided for us. Whatever future we have as a country, it should be one that we come together and decide ourselves. Okay, I think with that, can I thank you all very much indeed for your attendance. To the candidates here, good luck on the campaign trail. I'll see you all out there very soon. Thank you very much.